No cap, these glowing polymer clay mushrooms are way easier to make than you'd think. I'm Jane Sawyer, and this is Jane Sawyer Makes Polymer Clay Mushrooms with Caps. It was a pun. I'm working on a project that requires some glowing mushrooms. One of the most popular ways people are doing this is by using hot glue to form mushrooms onto some inexpensive LED fairy lights. But I don't want to do the typical hot glue mushrooms. I want to do something a bit different and a bit more lifelike. So today I'm going to walk you through how I make these glowing amanita mushrooms so that you can make your own.
Let's do it.
I'm making my mushrooms out of translucent polymer clay. This is my first time using Doughnut brand. I quite liked it. It was a tiny bit stickier than the brand I usually work with. I also used really small amounts of orange, red, and white polymer clay and some oven baked polymer clay adhesive. So you already know that I want to put some lights inside of my mushrooms. I've just bought these inexpensive fairy lights. They're battery operated, and the lights are, I'm sure you've seen these before. The lights all just come strung on a wire. I don't want to put this into the oven, so I need to be able to insert the lights after the stems are baked. This means that the stems need to be hollow. So let me show you how I do that. So we're going to build the stems on this sculpting tool I have. This is plastic and it can't go in the oven. Also, the clay would really stick to this. I'm going to wrap the tool tightly in a small amount of aluminum foil. Then we're going to take a sheet of translucent clay and wrap it around the foil covered tool. After trimming it to size and smoothing over the edge, I give the assembly a gentle roll against the table to smooth it out. Now I can carefully pull out the tool, being careful not to smush the foil. We're going to set this aside for now. Let's work on the cap. This is a sheet of translucent clay mixed with a bit of orange. I'm using a small cookie cutter to cut out a circle for the mushroom cap. You could also use a craft knife or just roll a ball and squish it flat. Now I'm making this into a dome using this large ball stylus. If you don't have one of these, a knuckle works well too. Don't worry about making it perfect. These are supposed to look organic and natural. Now we'll bake the stem and the cap to cure the clay. Always check your clay manufacturer's directions, but I baked mine for about 10 minutes at 275. When these have cooled down, remove the foil from the stem by gently twisting and pulling. If you've done it right, it should pull out pretty easy. With the foil removed, we're going to add the skirt to the stem. I roll out a snake of clay, flatten it, and pinch the edges to ruffle it a little bit. I'm doing this in my hands because the clay was sticking to my work surface a little bit. I'll wrap this about a third of the way down the stem and smooth out the top edge. Now I can use a tool to pick up some frills and add some texture. One last thing I did for the stem was to take some tiny bits of clay and smear them onto the stem like this. I think this little detail does a lot to make the mushroom look more lifelike. Now we'll give the stem another bake. Okay, now we'll bring back the cap and put these two components together. I'm taking a blob of translucent clay and smushing this into a little donut that fits inside my cap. So this is the first time we're going to use our oven baked clay adhesive here. We'll smear a little bit inside the cap and focus a drop down into the center. Now we can drop our little donut down in there and stick the top of the stem down into the donut hole. Blend the edges into the orange cap. Don't worry too much about how clean the edges are. I know it looks white now, but it bakes out translucent, so if the edges of your donut aren't tidy, you're not really going to see it. I'm using the back of my craft knife to press the gills into the donut. The key is to visualize the lines as radiating out from the center of the donut. This is the second time we're going to use our polymer clay adhesive here. I'm mixing some crumbs of red clay into a squirt of that clay adhesive. This stuff is a bit tricky to mix up, but it just works so well if you stick with it. Keep at it, breaking up the clumps until you have a red sticky paste. You want it to be pretty liquid, so add clay adhesive as needed to give it a liquid texture. It should be self-leveling. I use a latex makeup sponge to dab the color onto the mushroom cap, focusing the most color on the top center. With that done, we can give the mushroom another bake. While that's baking, I mixed up another color paste with some white clay and clay adhesive. This time I'm leaving the mix a bit chunkier. You can see this one doesn't self-level. There's still peaks and textures into it. We want that texture. We're gonna smear some spots on the top of our mushrooms. And as you can see here on our reference picture, in real life, the spots on the mushroom have lots of texture. Okay, now we'll bake our mushroom one final time. I don't like the perfectly straight stems that my mushrooms currently have, so while they're baking, I'm getting a bowl of cold water ready. When I pull these things out of the oven and while they're still hot, I gently bend the stem into a curve, and then holding it into position, I plunge it down into the cold water, holding it there until it cools, and you can see when I pull it out of the water here, the curve is locked in place. The final finishing touch is to dry brush a bit of white acrylic paint onto the textured areas of your mushroom. If you're not familiar with dry brushing, I have a whole video on that technique. I'll leave a link to that in the video description. I'm using a cotton bud dipped in isopropyl alcohol to clean up and blend out any mistakes I make. And there's my finished mushroom, all ready to be used in my project. If you want to see what I'm doing with these, I'll be posting that project next week, so make sure you're subscribed. Give this video a like if you think I did a good job, and I'll see you on the next one.